Hi, I'm Chris Martin, here in the Martin Museum in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. I'm going to talk today about tradition, and what a fantastic tradition we have. Starts with, of course, my great-great-great-grandfather, C.F. Martin Sr. And the tradition that he established was one of impeccable craftsmanship. I've seen enough of his work, and I am in awe of every instrument that I pick up, the quality, and I know what the tools that I have available to me today to make Martin guitars. And I think about what he had available to him and the fact that the tools were much more rudimentary. And he made the best guitars the world has ever seen. And so that's really the heart and soul of our tradition, is to maintain that very high standard that he set for not only us, but anyone else who wants to make a fine acoustic guitar. Well, the best part for me about giving these talks is doing them in the museum, because I've got props. And this is a very special guitar. It was built for one of the most famous female musicians back in the early 1800s, Madame de Goni. Not the kind of madam you might think about. She was very well known, traveled, toured, had a following, and wanted a fine acoustic guitar. And this is what we built. What's really special about this guitar is we believe that this is the first X-braced guitar the world has ever seen. Now, not everyone agrees with us. So my challenge to those of you that don't agree is come here and show us a guitar that is older than this one, that has X-bracing, that wasn't made by C.F. Martin Sr., and I will stop saying that C.F. Martin Sr. invented X-bracing, but until that time, I'm going with it. Amazingly enough, we have a photograph of her. The guitar was built in 1842. We think that there was a very practical reason that C.F. developed X-bracing, and that reason was that he was moving away from tying the strings onto the bridge to using bridge pins. And if you're familiar with the way they brace Spanish classic guitars, they use what's called fan bracing. And it's possible that, back then you moved things around to make everything line up. And it's very possible that he may have mistakenly drilled through one of the fan braces on an earlier model and said, this isn't going to work. I've got to find a better way. And so by putting the X-brace here, he created a lot of strength right there. And that's an area, when you think about it, there's a big hole there. There's a lot of pressure. The guitar wants to cave in on itself. But what you want to do is leave this area open so that the top can vibrate, move back and forth, and create the sound. Amazingly enough to me, now my family didn't patent it, and even if they had, the patent would have run out. But amazingly to me, just about everybody who makes flat-top steel string acoustic guitars today copies Martin X-bracing. We did it first in 1842 on gut string guitars, and then when we transitioned to the steel string guitars in the 1920s, we just beefed up the bracing and have run with it ever since. While I have this guitar in my hand, let's talk about the headstock. Early Martin guitars, you could see the Stauffer influence. There were a variety of different headstock shapes, and if you wanted to upgrade, you put the Stauffer headstock on with the really ornate enclosed metal tuning machines. Luthiers often are identified by their headstock shape, particular Spanish luthiers, and even today, steel string guitar builders often make a particular shape that then they say that's how one of the ways, other than their logo or their brand, that you can identify the guitar. CF took a very simple, elegant, almost shaker-like route to developing the rectangular headstock. It's one of our trademarks. And in fact, today, it's a registered trademark of the Martin Guitar Company. That gives some of my competitors a little bit of the heebie-jeebies because they are copying a registered trademark. And we've had some discussions about that. But just bear in mind that anytime you see a guitar with a rectangular headstock, it was a copy of a Martin guitar. While we're talking about headstocks, let's talk about the little diamond on the back of the point where the headstock meets the neck on some Martin guitars. I talked a little bit about Stauffer. And what I learned not that long ago was that often people would buy a guitar and the headstock would have friction pegs. And they were okay, but that's what they could afford. Wasn't that expensive. But the guitar was built so that at some point, if you wanted to upgrade to mechanical tuners, you took it back to the guitar builder or to a repairman, and they would remove the headstock and then replace it with perhaps a Stauffer headstock or a different headstock with the mechanical, the metal tuners, which were much more precise. And so that is the origin of the diamond on the back of some very traditional, historic Martin guitars. One of the advantages of having a business that's been in the same family for 6 generations is we are very consistent. We've got records going way back. In fact, this is a ledger book from 1852. And in the ledger book, it talks about what we made. Now, they abbreviated. For Mr. Hunt, a dealer in New York, we made a guitar, rosewood, cedar neck, pearl, had some ivory pegs, $56. You know, that was a lot of money back then. This is an orchestra model. It's actually the OM45. And the orchestra model was the first Martin guitar with steel strings to have a 14-fret neck. The origin of it was a custom order from a famous vaudeville banjo player named Perry Bechtel. And Perry saw that the vaudeville banjo thing was coming to an end. He was young, ambitious, said, I want to switch to the guitar. And every time he picked up a guitar, it had a wide 12-fret neck. He said, I need a guitar that feels and plays more like a banjo. And so we squared off the shoulders, extended the neck, we slimmed down the neck, put a radius on it, and off to the races we went. And today, most Martin guitars, in fact, most flat-top steel string guitars today, have 14-fret necks. The Dreadnought, our bread and butter. Brian Majeski, the editor of Music Trades magazine, told me once, he said, Chris, you know, the Dreadnought is probably the most popular shape of acoustic guitar in the world. At which point I thought, I wish we had gotten a patent on it. Patent would have run out by now anyway. And what's that old saying? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Well, we are very flattered because we are very imitated. I think it's quite possible that more good contemporary acoustic guitar music has been played on Dreadnought guitars than any other guitar on earth. This is proudly made by my colleagues in our factory in Mexico. The top, back, and sides on this guitar are high-pressure laminate. The material came from a tree. The neck is Stratobond, very high-tech version of plywood, very high-tech version. These guitars, great for travel and great for kids. Finally, a high-quality guitar that you can get for your child. Their first Martin, they're going to love it. They're really durable, and hopefully someday they too will want a D45. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and friend Danny Brown. Believe it or not, even though he looks 14, he's been here 25 years. Danny's worked his way up through the plant, works in the custom shop today, and I know he'll give you a little more detail about the Martin tradition. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Danny Brown. I work in the Martin custom shop. As Chris had mentioned, I've been here for 25 years. And in that amount of time, I've had the privilege and honor of working with some of the finest craftsmen that I know in this building. They weren't guitar players, they were guitar builders. They were woodworkers, they understood what they were working with, and they managed to build some of the finest guitars that set the bar for the standard of guitar manufacture today. When dealing with the custom shop, we have the unique ability to take the customer's vision and apply different tone woods, body sizes, scale lengths, and appointment levels. We actually have 180 years to draw from our history and technological advancements to utilize. One thing that we're very proud of, that we actually do custom artwork, and we also do a custom appointment level when requested. In the custom shop, the sky's the limit. We are very proud to offer world-class craftsmanship in honor of the great Martin tradition.
I hope I gave you a little flavor for our tradition, but ideally, you need to come and visit. You need to come, spend some time here, spend time in the museum. Look at all the really cool guitars we have. Look at the memorabilia. Look at, you know, it's a great way to get a clearer picture of what the Martin Guitar Company is all about.